Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Always. What are we getting into today?
Well, it's something I think we've all thought about at some point. How different are men and women when it comes to forgiveness?
Interesting. You mean like how they handle hurt or if they actually let go of things?
Exactly.
Hmm.
Is it really true that guys just forget stuff and move on while women remember everything? That old chestnut.
I see where we're going with this. And what's our starting point for this deep dive?
Well, it all comes from this one statement that I found. It's short, but it really got me thinking.
All right, let's hear it. Lay it on me.
Okay, here it is. A man forgets but doesn't forgive. A woman forgives but doesn't forget. Powerful, right?
Ooh, yeah. I can already see how this is going to spark some debate.
I know, right? It just feels so relatable. I can think of so many situations where this seems to play out.
Absolutely. It definitely has that ring of truth to it. We've all probably observed something like this in our own lives, but before we all go drawing hard lines in the sand. Right. We got to remember, people are complex. It's always nuance. And forgiveness, especially, it's not a simple on-off switch.
100%. So where do we even begin to unpack this? Is this difference mostly cultural, or is there something more fundamental going on? Nature versus nurture and all that?
Well, think about it this way. There's been tons of research on emotional expression, and one thing that keeps popping up is how, even from a young age, boys are often told not to show vulnerability.
Like boys don't cry, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And that can lead to boys developing different coping mechanisms than girls. It's not that men necessarily forget the hurt, but maybe they learn to suppress those feelings, just push them down to fit in with what society expects of them.
That makes a lot of sense. So if men are kind of conditioned to bury those feelings, it follows that true forgiveness, which means facing those emotions head on, would be tougher for them.
Exactly. It becomes less about forgetting the actual event itself and more about just muting the emotional impact. Now, flip that around and think about how women are often expected to be more nurturing and forgiving.
Right. Yeah.
Does that maybe create a situation where they offer forgiveness outwardly to, keep the peace, but inside, the memory and maybe even the hurt is still there?
Whoa, that's deep. So it's like forgiving becomes the proper feminine response, even if it doesn't line up with what they're truly feeling.
Right. And that really brings home the point that we can't just take this statement as a black and white truth. Everyone's different. Cultural backgrounds, personal experiences, the specific relationships involved, all of these things play a role in how someone deals with forgiveness. You can't just reduce it to men do this, women do that.
So this statement, while definitely thought-provoking, it's more like a launch pad for a much bigger conversation about forgiveness and, honestly, how little we truly understand it.
Absolutely. It pushes us to ask, what does real forgiveness actually look like? Can anyone truly forget a wrong that's been done to them? And how much do our personal histories and, societal pressures shape our ability to forgive or even forget in the first place?
This is making me think, on a personal level, have you, the listener, noticed this playing out in your own life? Do things tend to go the way this statement suggests? Or maybe your experience is totally different. It's a cool way to look back on your own relationships and how forgiveness has or hasn't worked.
And at the end of the day, it's not about labeling people or putting them in boxes. It's about understanding. When we recognize that there are different approaches to forgiveness and we start to get why those differences might exist, it can help us all navigate our relationships, especially the tough parts, with more empathy and hopefully a bit more wisdom.
This has been such a cool deep dive. I mean, we started with just one sentence, and look where it's taken us. All these big questions about men and women, societal norms, and just the whole concept of forgiveness.
Yeah.
It really shows how much there is to uncover, even in the simplest ideas.
That's the fun part, isn't it? The exploring. There's always more to think about. And if thinking about this can help us communicate better and build stronger relationships, then that's a good path to be on.
It totally is. And that's all the time we have for today's deep dive. But the conversation doesn't have to stop here. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Have you seen this pattern play out in your own life? How do you approach forgiveness? We'd love to hear your perspectives. And if you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more thought-provoking deep dives. Thanks for listening.
See you next time.